Yeah. Yeah.
What is up?
What it is,
Yeah, man.
what it do.
So we are live streaming on YouTube right now, but we're the only ones that know about it, so it doesn't really matter. No one's gonna be checking this out, but we'll be sharing it with the league. So what's up, everybody? This is Rashid, coming to you live from BK in Brooklyn, where I'm born and raised, and I'm here with Fadl Bayari.
That's right.
Yeah, we're just chilling. Fadl, where you at right now?
So I'm reporting you from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, home of the UNC Tar Heels, also known as the University of Nashville. Baby.
Word. You're up in the condo?
I'm up at the condo.
Word, man. Cool.
So this is the We Still Here podcast, right?
Yeah, man. This is the We Still Here. This is the first episode, man. So we're already in mid-season form right now. Bringing it. The league. So this is now our 5th year that we're in the league, and basically it's a keeper league that started out back in 2013, 2012, 2013, and I don't know, how did I start We Still Here? I don't even know. I played fantasy football for like a long time, and I was like, how can I do something fun that's like fantasy sports, but like that also like kind of brings together different people that I know that are like into football or into fantasy, that where it'll be fun, but will also be like kind of connecting some of the people in my life who otherwise like would never interact with each other, you know?
I think this is a good segue into one segment of the show, which we're going to try to do on a weekly basis, and that is interview one of the owners in the league.
Yeah.
To get a little bit to know a little bit more about them, and personally, as well as why they enjoy playing fantasy football, what they think about their prospects, sort of some of their views on some of the other players in the league, etc. And I know we had initially thought about interviewing Chris, but Chris couldn't make it. Chris got for good reason. He got a great job starting tomorrow.
Yeah, he's been
congratulations, Chris.
Yeah, congrats to Chris. Shout out to Chris right now.
Shout out to Chris. I hope you'll be sending me cases of
the finest, probably.
But
yeah,
why don't we start off by interviewing you, Rishi? Because I think I was actually thinking about it earlier today. You were the one who started the league, and I have my own questions about certain things about the league and just you in general. As maybe not everyone knows, but Rashid and I go way back. We met at Oberlin College in 2003.
Yep.
I had actually never played fantasy football until you brought me into it back in, I think it was 2013, right?
Yeah, man. I think I think at that point it was just for fun. We just got into some leagues that were just for fun. There wasn't any rivalry, or like anything personal involved in it. But I actually got into fantasy when I was in high school. And I got into fantasy through Chris and Jerome, who are both also in the league. So Chris and Jerome were actually chess teachers for this program called Chess in Schools here in New York. And all the guys who were in Chesson schools. Well, a lot of the staff actually had like this running fantasy baseball league that had already been going for like probably a good like 5-6 years by the time that I found out about it. And I was already really into baseball at that point in my life. I was a huge Yankees fan when I was in high school, and even back
Huh.
in middle school. I was a huge
Yankee.
Yankees fan. Yeah, Derek. I was all about Derek Jeter, and like before that, like Wade Boggs, and huge. I went to the parades when the Yankees won the World Series and everything. So I was really into baseball, and like I was like, oh, fantasy baseball, like okay, cool. How do I sign up? Like, how does this work? And I just got deep in the game, deep into it. And I got to be pretty competitive and like good. And I enjoyed it. So I just kept doing it. And I did it into college, actually, into being at Oberlin. I stayed in the baseball league until like 2004.
Right.
And at some point, like I had to buckle down and get really serious with my studies, and I dropped out of it. But like it definitely like kind of um, that league kind of opened my mind up to like a whole other level of like kind of different way of looking at sports as far as just analyzing. It's not just about the stats. Like most people think, oh, fantasy is just about stats. Of course, like that's how you win. You get the best players that produce the best stats.
Right.
But it's also about like the game within the game, and like analyzing individual battles and matchups. And it goes that way for baseball, football, whatever sport you're looking at. Matchups, and how like things are going to break down, and trying to like also just trying to predict like what's going to happen over the course of a season, especially in baseball. It's crazy because it's such a long season. And there's a lot of people that, I met through that league that not necessarily in touch with to this day, like from the chess. Well, definitely Chris and Jerome, but like they just had impact on me in terms of like life lessons and stuff from that league and stuff. So it was cool. And then for fantasy football, like I think I've always been a huge Giants fan, big time, big blue all the way, all day. And for me, some of like the best like memories I have as far as like going to live sporting events are like going to Giants games back in the day, like talking like Rodney Hampton days, Jesse Armstead, Strahan when he was like a rookie, seeing that defense just ascend and ascend, and it's a different atmosphere going to a football game from any other type of sport because each game matters so much. It means so much to everybody. The intensity is unmatchable. And so I've always been a huge football fan ever since, I can remember my first game. Saw Giants play Washington. I think I was like 9. And it was awesome. And we won the game. It was like a defensive like throwdown. And I think we won like 13-7 or something. And ever since then, I've been hooked on football. So,
one of the things that I've always, wondered was how you came up with the name. Like, what does the name symbolize?
yeah, man, I think what it is for me is like these people, like, there's just people in my life that unfortunately, like, or I'd say fortunately, because of the league, like we've been able to stay in touch through the league or get it back in touch with each other through the league. And in that way, what I mean by that is like, we're still here. Like, there's a lot of people, and I think this is for everybody. This is a human, especially this day and age, because we move around the world and move around and, take on different paths as we go. so often these days, because the world just moves at such a fast pace that we lose touch with each other. It happens, you know, we walk in and out of each other's lives as people, but we're still those impacts, those memories that you have with somebody, or, you know, that bond that you share. It doesn't go anywhere, you know. And I think a big part of why the league was created by me was to like really keep ties with people, keep like intentional ties with people who I feel like, you know, I want in my life forever, you know. And I want to like, and in many ways, I think a lot of the people I that are in the league, they they come from a time when I was like coming of age, you know, like adolescence, college, getting older. And, you know, as we get older, we get more serious. We, you know, I'm a parent now, I'm a dad, and like, you know, life gets more serious, and, you know, but I want to still like have fun, you know, and I still want to be able to like, hold on to and like embrace that side of myself that has a youthful spirit. And like this league kind of allows that energy to like stay flowing, and I think we all share in that here in this space. So to me, that's why it's we still here, you know. We're still here, like that young Rashid, you know, that, you know, back in the day, it was like just like you know, I'll tell a story real quick. Like I was also a diehard Nick fan back in the day. And I was such a diehard Nick fan that I would actually like my dad and I, as my parents are split up, my dad and I would watch Nick games. Like literally the entire game would be spent on the phone with each other, like watching the game, like talking about the game. We were like Bob Costas and Marv Albert, like just breaking down, you know, the game as we watch it. And then like, but it would get so intense, and it's like playoffs. And I would literally like in the fourth quarter when things got really tight, and the Knicks needed stops, like they needed to play defense, I would literally like get up and like run. Like I would literally like jog in place as I'm like watching the game. Like, come on, like the Knicks need me right now. I gotta run. Like I gotta give my energy. And that youthful spirit, I think, that competitive spirit, that like connectedness to the game, even as fans, is what I'm trying to, you know, bring in, and we still here.
Excellent, excellent. Um, Before we can, you know, continue, I have, you know, a few more questions I'd like to ask you, but just thought I'd let everyone know at the same time we're also watching a very late head-to-head matchup between Chicago and Green Bay.
Yep.
It's now 14-35. Green Bay's winning.
Yep. No surprise there.
No surprise there. You know, game was delayed by rain, a couple of injuries on the field, which we'll talk about later on. But in case you hear us stopping or shouting or going crazy, you probably won't for anything really at this point. But in the event we do, that's why. Why don't you tell everybody, and specifically me, I mean, I know in general, but, you know, a lot of other people in the league don't know, what year did the league actually start? Who were the original players? And how, in terms of those people, how do you know, let's say, how did you meet Cheryl? Where did you meet Jerome?
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of the people who are in this league, I met through you and only through fantasy, and became friends with them afterwards. And the same goes for, you know, some of the other people who've been brought into the league now and are, you know, veterans. So, you know, tell us more about, you know, when the league started, who were the original players, who stayed on, and how you knew everyone who, you know, who was in the league.
Yeah, so the league got started, you know, as far as like calendar year, it started in 2012, the 2012-2013 season. And I think so at that time I was still in grad school. And I think, you know, I was about to be like, I was getting close to finishing grad school and like leaving, I think, or at least I knew that I would be leaving like the following year. Because I think I really started to organize it like, yeah, in 2012, like the beginning of the season. So probably in the summer of 2012. Yeah. Um, and when I got it going, you know, honestly, the first person I thought of was definitely you initially, um, because I already knew you were a huge football fan. I knew you played football in college. I know you were a huge Bengals fan, like ride or die, all day natty. Um, and so I was like, okay, Fadl's definitely gonna be down for this. Um, and you were, and then it was kind of like the stars were just like aligning in terms of this like AFC North rivalry that was just gonna like become a staple of our league, because I also had become really close to Cheryl. Cheryl and I met at Davis, where I was at Davis for grad school. She was there for school as well. Um, Believe it or not, through farming, like, cause I was in the agriculture program and she was both teaching and as a student
Right.
in in a ag program, and we just like, I found out somehow, it wasn't too long after I met her that I found out that she was a Steelers fan, because she definitely like rocks the gear, um, and like she found out I was a Giants fan, and then from there it was just like, you know, we would be the only people among our group, because those people like in like in ag school and like, you know, the science nerds and stuff, like they're like, football, what are you talking about? Like, you go and watch football on Sundays? Are you kidding me? I'm writing papers, or I'm like, you know, trying to like plow this field or whatever it might be. We're like, yeah, we get away from it all, you know, go watch football together and stuff. And so Cheryl, you know, that's how Cheryl like got connected to the league. And Cheryl's a huge Steelers fan. Um,
Hello?
she became a Steelers fan. She's actually a huge Oakland A's fan. And she has been for like a long time. And she did live in the Bay Area for quite a while. Um, like, I think I want to say at least like 15 years. She lived in the Bay Area, and she's a contractor. She actually, her previous like career, she was in basically doing like private like construction work. Um, and she decided to like reinvent herself and do what she really wanted to do, and that's why she went back to school. And now she's actually pursuing, she's doing it, you know. She literally like, there are days like, because now Cheryl's taking on the co-commissioner role this year for the first
Right.
time. And there are literally like days where she's like definitely going out and like milking some goats and then like checking checking the league, you know, like initiating a vote for something, you know. Like recently we just switched over to the waiver system. Like, she was all into that, you know, handling that or whatever. So she'll literally be like doing something, you know, in farming, and then be like handling league business. So
It's not easy. It's not an easy job, is it?
oh no, man, no. We've put in the time, we put in the hours. We both know the deal with that. Yeah, but Sean and Cheryl are doing a great job. And Sean, I know from Oberlin also, just like you. But I actually didn't really like, what's interesting about Sean is that Sean and I weren't really close friends at all much. Sean and I we got to be closer in New York. Um, Especially through another mutual friend of ours, Ali. Um,
Right.
so Ali, who I also went to high school with, um, he his sister. So it's actually crazy like connections now. So like the school that Sean now teaches at, is the same school that I went to high school at, the same school that Jerome and Chris um, and Ali, all of us went to that high school for environmental
Jerome
studies.
went to the school too, as well.
Yeah,
And
and the thing is that you might not know this, Fadl, but um, Ali's sister taught there. She was like my English teacher back in like sophomore year of high school, and now she's the principal of the school.
that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
She just started as the principal last year. It was her first year there. So that's kind of like a crazy connection that we have as far as the high school for environmental studies connection. And but Sean actually runs Sean runs a baseball league that I'm also a part of. That's been going on for like, I kid you not, like at least 15 years, maybe 20. And so Sean is super like, he's deep in the game in terms of like fantasy sports, both like football, but especially baseball. And we essentially like, Sean and I connected just through Ali, and even before the baseball league. Like I remember especially like getting to hang out a lot at the reunion last year with him, and then before that, we were in touch because when he started at environmental last year, we were in touch a lot because I was helping him with their school garden program and trying to get that off the ground, because that's what I do here in the city. I work with school gardens,
Right.
so I was trying to help them,
So,
coordinate that.
so yeah, that leads actually to one of my other questions. And we'll try to get through this quickly because we have a lot we'd like to get to, and a lot of other questions we'd like to ask you. Sure, everyone is. We want to know a little bit more about who you are when you're not playing fantasy football. What it is you do. Where you live, a little bit about your family. I know you. Not everyone may know, but Rashid is married with a young little boy, and it might be disconnecting. Are you there, Rashid? I mean, We're back on?
Yeah, man.
What happened?
Uh, I don't know. My computer just like randomly just like cut out like all of a sudden. Um, anyway,
I thought maybe Hathaway pulled the cord or something.
yeah, literally my computer is at like 100% battery. I'm like right next to the router. I don't know what happened. It must have been a ghost. Um, yeah, or a djinn or something. Um, but I know you were about to ask me like about
Yeah,
my
tell us a little about who you are, what you do. Tell us about your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try to give the quick and dirty version of it since we're short on time. So I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. My father's from Trinidad in the West Indies. My mom is from here in the US in New York, but her family goes back to like Eastern Europe and Germany. And so I'm a mixed kid, black and, Jewish, typical Brooklyn kid, I guess you could say. Um, and
You
I,
eat bagels.
yeah.
I mean, you love bagels.
Oh gosh, hell yeah. Give me all the locks.
Yeah.
I want them Scotia locks, baby. Them Scotia locks.
Yeah.
Delicious.
You're the guy who wakes up at like 6 a.m. to get the first batch of hot bagels. And you just
Yo, during the draft, I went and got these bagels from down the block from Chris's place that were bomb, and I should have gotten a whole dozen. I only got half a dozen. I should have gotten a whole dozen because I went through two of them joints, and then by the 12th round, I was like, yo, I could do another bagel right now. Yeah, I can crush bagels, pizza. Yeah, definitely all that good Brooklyn food. Yeah, so my family from like the Caribbean and and then I'm also Muslim. I and Fado knows this. We're brothers, in Islam. Like, he was there when I like accepted Islam back in 2004 at Oberlin, and so that's like a big part of our connection. Having been like really active in the MSA back at Oberlin and being like one of like, being a speck in a sea of white or however you want to call it at Oberlin because like there were very few Muslims. And so, that's definitely a big part of my journey and my path. And also as far as what I do right now is I work for the Parks Department here in New York City, and I work with I'm a youth program manager. So I manage youth programs within our division for the division in New York City that runs community gardens and school gardens. And so I work with, I try to get basically more or less put it in a nutshell, I try to get young people active outside, learning about their natural environment, whether that means like growing food, learning about pollinators, climate change, ecology, everything. The politics that goes into the outside space and who gets what and who doesn't get all those things. So yeah, that's kind of what I do now. And my wife is the love of my life, sleeping right now, soundly and peacefully in the other room with our son Hathaway. And she's also kind of in the green sector, and we met through grad school. And she's now looks like she just accepted a job also. So congrats to her.
Congratulations. Yeah, it's awesome.
Working with an organization called Green City Force that works with young people who live in project housing here in New York City, which is a lot, which is almost like 700,000 people. And giving them an opportunity to enter the green workforce through doing like green retrofits in housing, all the way up to things like working on farms that are in those NYCHA properties, those project housing developments.
Right.
So, yeah, we're both kind of green nerds, and yeah, trying to make a better future for our young people.
It's awesome, man. I've always known Rashid as the guy who can pretty much figure out how to plant and grow anything and then eat it. I remember at one point, I remember your old apartment in, I don't know if I remember it was in Manhattan or Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, yeah.
It was in Brooklyn, but like you had this, like you were growing so many different vegetables there.
Yep.
I think you were like literally growing what you were eating every day.
Yep.
And I thought that was fascinating. You
Yep.
literally were like, you know, sustaining yourself through your own work. Thought that was pretty cool. So so many of you know this already about Rashid, but some of you don't. Rashid was the first commissioner of the league. I served as a commissioner with him for 2 years. But before that, before Rashid and Rizalba had Hathaway, he was the sole commissioner. I subbed in 1 year to help him out. We ended up both co-commissioning the league, and then we did it again last year. But tell us a little bit more about some of the experiences you had as a commissioner and what you think it takes to be a good commissioner, and sort of some of the struggles you think you could sort of elaborate on for our new commissioners, Cheryl and Sean, and future commissioners going forward.
Yeah. I mean, being commissioner is crazy. It's a lot of fun in one way, because you get to kind of like set the tone for the season, bring everybody back together again. It's like, okay, it's that time of year, basically like around summertime, as far as like finalizing everything. Um, it is a lot of work. There's a lot of time that goes into it. I've written, probably like a decent sized report's worth of emails in my time. Out to the league to like inform them of whatever's going on. There's been our share of drama. Every league has its drama or its controversy every year. Everybody wants to win. It's competitive. We've had all kinds of things happen. At one point, family was getting really active in the league. So my dad was in the league. And then I had my brother-in-law, who was my dad's son-in-law, in the league, and like they made this trade that everybody and everybody's mother knew was just collusion, straight up collusion. And I actually even just talked to my dad about it recently, and he just like copped to it for the first time. Like he was just like, yeah, I was just trying to, like, I was done, like I couldn't keep up with it. Because basically what happened was my dad just didn't know how to play fantasy football, and he wasn't really trying to learn or try to improve. And so at one point he just like quit. And then once he quit, he wasn't really paying attention, but he lived in the same house as Fabian, his son-in-law. And so Fabian had direct access to my dad, unlike everybody else who wouldn't be able to get in touch with him. And so Fabian got him to do this ridiculous trade. I don't even remember the players involved in it, but I just know that the trade was insane. And what was really crazy about it is that, if I remember correctly, it ended up going through. We had really strict rules and high standards at that time for like quorum and for a veto to be passed, and it didn't meet that. And so the trade ended up standing, and that was definitely like stuck in the craw. Especially Chris to this day will not stop talking about that. If you bring that up to Chris, he will still. It's like it happened yesterday.
But it's not the only trade.
No. There's been so many trades. There was the trade. There was the trade with Jerome and I, where I was giving up. At that point, I was giving up Dez because Dez was injured, and getting Calvin Johnson, and Fado flipped his shit over that, because it was putting me in a position. I was trying to win. I was trying to get into the playoffs, actually, really specifically. And this was Calvin Johnson's last year in the league. And we all know what happened. Calvin Johnson ended up being a decoy in the last game, at least of the fantasy season, regular season that year. He didn't do anything, and I lost, and I didn't even make the playoffs. It's like a high draft pick and Des Bryant, who ended up being a really good keeper. So it turned out to be not only a fair trade, but actually a swindle, like in the favor of Jerome. I had gotten D'Angelo Williams the year Lev Bell went down in that deal as well. It didn't pay off. And yeah, that was another one. There was another one this past year that probably goes down as one of the most ridiculous things that happened, where money was actually exchanged hands in a trade. And I think the trade involved there was some quarterbacks involved. Like
I can't remember, but
I think it was Big Ben and Luck. Big Ben.
you know who you are. You know who you are. We won't. We won't embarrass you any further, but
what we do. Just coming back to the whole thing about being a commissioner and like why it can really suck sometimes about that is that Fadl and I were put in the situation where, number one, it was like one of the parties involved in that bribery thing last year. It was like a friend of Fadl's from high school, and this was somebody like, as a la like We Still Here fashion, like this is somebody who he hadn't really been in close touch with since high school much, but now is coming back into his life again, and they were like becoming like the camaraderie was coming back, and like they were cool again, and they were in touch with each other. And now all of a sudden this happens, and more or less, to put it like bluntly, like it blew up the relationship, because this happened, and you're in a position as a commissioner trying to like hold somebody accountable for something that is clearly and blatantly against the rules, even though it's not like, we didn't have anything in writing that says you can't trade money for players, but it's just like ask anybody, like that's totally flies in the face of like how the game is played.
Yeah, and it just sort of, it spinned out of control, and some really derogatory remarks were made.
It did.
The point is, like, and I think it's good we're talking about this. Last year there was a lot of drama, and the structure of the organization was slightly different. But there was a lot of work that went into putting together the regulations. There was a lot of work that was put into solving, various conundra, and ultimately, what I came to the conclusion is that unless you have everyone participating, all the owners participating all at once, it's very, very difficult to have a vote in the season regarding any issue, unless it concerns you or concerns everyone, and you have everyone participating and paying attention to their phones. So we had, instituted this rule where, when it came to trades specifically, have a commission, and the commission would be, everyone remembers how it was. The point is this, and I don't want to get into too much detail other than saying this. Do you agree, Rashid, that one of the most difficult challenges in being a commissioner in the league is quite literally trying to be fair?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's the hardest thing.
It's the hardest thing. I mean, earlier this year, like the first week of the season, how many people benefited from being, at the top of the waiver priority list for the entire week?
Yep.
Week one was not a fab system. It was just waiver priority.
Yep.
So at the end of the year, if someone ended up, I picked up Chris Thompson, luckily, that week, right? My waiver priority was high, and I was able to trade him pretty high, right? So, it's just so difficult to please everyone. And what a commissioner is going to face, at least in my opinion, I'd like to hear from you, is some sort of deference that is going to be, in the eyes and experience of the commissioner, fair. It does take in consideration the community's opinion, but at the same time, the community's opinion is not always there.
Yeah, I mean, if I could, like the thing about that situation with the bribery that was so unnerving, other than the derogatory remarks, which was totally out of line and really just set a bad tone for the rest of the season. It was fairly early in the season when it happened. I think it was like week 4 or something, week 3.
Right.
Was that we caught a lot of flack because we made a decision using the system that we had said or told everybody that we were going to use to make these decisions. And then we caught flack for it from people. I'm not going to say any names, Jerome, but from people who are not like the most active or vocal the rest of the time. But then all of a sudden when a decision is made, it's like, oh, you guys should have had a vote on that. They want votes on everything. Everybody wants votes on everything. But then when you look at who's actually reading the emails that are sent out, and like, the people who are complaining about the vote wanting votes are the people who don't read the emails. And then after the fact, they're like, oh, but this wasn't discussed. And it's like, no, it's right there in plain English right in front of you. You just chose not to read it. You just chose to trust, empower the person or persons who are running the league to just like trust that their decision making is good. But then the second that it's a decision that you don't like or you don't think is fair, then you want to question the system process by which it was done. And unfortunately, that's the nature of a lot of politics these days, to be honest.
Well, that's the nature of a democracy, really. Yeah. Is that people participate, and people participate and lobby for their own beliefs when they're at issue. When they're not, people typically sit quiet. I mean, that's generally the way it works. But in every decision that a commissioner makes, if they're in a position to make a decision, or for whatever reason it can't be put to a vote, there's always going to be somebody who's benefited and somebody who is disadvantaged by the decision, and that's just the way it works. I think for now, I certainly am we'll learn more about Rashid, certainly learn more about me, since we're going to be, we're the old grumpy commissioners, co-commissioners of the league. The other owners will learn about us just throughout the season. So I'd like to, move on to our next subject, if possible. It was really great hearing about your experience with the league, your family, something about you beyond just fantasy football league and why you like fantasy, etc. How about we get into a little bit more of, what we think of the season this year, how competitive we think it will be, some of the rule changes, how they'll affect some of the matchups, and what you think of some of the recent moves, trades, pickups.
Yeah. So from a personal standpoint, like I'm pretty. I gotta say I'm pretty happy right now. I'm a David Johnson owner, so it's a tough start to the season with him going down, probably for the year. And I'm in second place right now. I have the second most points in the league.
Yeah.
So I'd say like I couldn't be happier as far as where I'm at given my situation. Of course, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for me to stay competitive given that situation. He's a first round pick, and one of the best just players in fantasy, period. But what's interesting this year, so Sean is at it again. Sean won the league last year for the first time. He's always been very highly ranked ever since he entered the league, which I think he came in 2014.
Yeah, I think
If I remember correctly.
2014. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's been up there several times, and he's now in first place. And he started from day one with OBJ, with Odell Beckham Jr. And team name is David Wilson's Ghost. By the way, there was a joke this week that I put up on the chat. Paul Perkins Ghost.
Yeah.
Paul Perkins seems to be to have one foot in the grave already as well.
So would you say that Sean is your biggest competition right now?
I wouldn't be able to argue with that. I would also put so you are definitely way up there. And that's not necessarily only because of your roster construction, because you have Julio and Antonio Brown, and a deep team. But also because I know that you'll also always like stay competitive from the start to the finish, and that counts for like the most in fantasy, like more than anything. Just like staying active, always trying to improve your team, either through the wire or through trades. You're by far the most active owner in trades. You already made 3 trades.
Yeah, I've already made 3 trades.
Yeah. So,
it's interesting that you say that because.
But I would throw, if I could, I would throw 2 other names in there as far as like teams that I'm looking at that I think are kind of ascending right now, and you might be surprised by the first one. I actually think, and this might be in spite of this injury that just experienced tonight, but I think Chris is actually like set up to be very competitive this year. He has the 2 rookie running backs, Fournette and McCaffrey. He's got Delaney Walker and Jimmy Graham, solid tight ends. Really hard to get like solid tight ends that are like not necessarily like they're going to blow up every week, but those guys are like entrenched as like major parts of their offenses. So they're going to be consistent producers. His wide receivers aren't great, but he's got Devontae Adams, Doug Baldwin, Jarvis Landry. They're all, again, like just steady guys. And then he's got Russell Wilson. I like this team. I think it's a pretty well-rounded team. He's got good depth. He's got Tyrell Williams on the bench. And he's looking up. He's just got his first win last week, and he's also projected for the highest point total this week. So I think his team is starting to ascend.
But
round into form.
I will say this, okay? He's kind of like, and I feel, Chris is one of my favorite people in this league. He's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys
Yeah.
years. He just finds he has like a lot of potential.
It's true.
But then he'll just find a way to lose. I don't know how, but he just will. And it's not, some of it is luck. Luck hasn't been on his side. Some of it has been
questionable decisions sometimes.
Questionable decisions. It's starting, start, sit decisions.
Yeah.
Everybody comes into the game with a different strategy. Okay. Sean, you mentioned earlier that, one of the things that you think makes me competitive is the fact that I'm very active with my roster. People like Sean, I mean, I don't recall Sean, maybe Sean made 1 trade last year.
1 trade last year. It was a genius trade given what ended up happening, because he traded away Devontae Freeman, an RB1. And by the way, the previous year, Devontae Freeman was the overall RB1 and one of the best players in fantasy the previous year. And he flipped him and got Cheryl's first-round pick, which is a 4th-round pick after the keepers, but that's besides the point. Basically, the first round of the actual draft. And he went on to actually also still win the league. That was just like probably by far the notwithstanding as far as like the players involved, but in terms of like what he was able to do, that was like one of the best trades I've ever seen.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, gets a
most impressive.
I love that, man. We got to keep that's going to become a staple.
I mean, that is just.
That's baller.
I made a lot of trades last year, and my goal was to literally have.
All right, we got to get to this now. We got to get to this.
Okay. All right, fine. let me provide a little bit of context here. So I joined in 2013. Okay, I played football. I hadn't played fantasy football before. I understood the game very well, though, and I think to a certain extent that gave me a little bit of an advantage. But what I also liked doing a lot was trading. I just think it's a fun part of the game. I mean, you know, week to week, players are bullish and players are bearish, and I try to follow what I think are bullish and try to not follow what I think are bearish. It's that simple. 2013, I can't remember what my record was, but I ended up facing Cheryl in the championship. First season in the league, and I lost. I think it was a very slim margin, like a couple of points.
Yeah.
And I actually think it was because I didn't start Jeremy Hill, which we'll get to again later on.
Yeah, it was.
2014, I think, was probably my worst season to date. I think I finished in 4th place or 5th place. But in 2015, I believe I was 2nd place again, and it was against Cheryl again.
Yep.
And who's that guy in Family Feud? What's his name?
Steve Harvey.
I got Steve Harvey. Basically, what happened was, I won. I was beating Cheryl. It was really close. At the end of the game, points showed that I'd beaten Cheryl by like 1.5 points.
Yep.
Okay. Then in the morning, I woke up, looked at my phone. And it turns out there was a stat correction. And the stat correction was, I think it was for Aaron Rodgers. I don't remember who it was exactly. It was somebody I had on my team. Stat correction minus 1.6 or something like that, where the difference in our score was literally 1/10 of a point. And Cheryl became a 2-time champion.
Yep.
So
it's that correction bugaboo, man.
So 2016, which was last year, was a statement year for me. I went into the year telling myself, I am going to do everything I can possible to win. Trade all my picks, like I won't bribe like some other people tried to do, but I'm going to make some good deals. Okay. The year before, everyone knows I had traded Kirk Cousins for AJ Green, and it blew up like crazy. That player is no longer in our league, probably because he's embarrassed for having made that trade, which I think is true. But I started off with AJ Green, Alshon Jeffrey, and Doug Martin. Those are my keepers in 2016. Okay. Doug Martin ended up getting injured in the 2nd week of the season, really didn't show up or play the rest of the season at all. Alshon Jeffrey kept getting injured left and right, couldn't do much of anything. But I was lucky to have kept AJ Green, drafted DeMarco Murray, who happened to be 2nd in rushing last year. I also drafted Greg Olsen. I also had Phillip Rivers. I seem to always have Phillip Rivers. I had, my mind escapes me now, but I had, a couple of other decent running backs, decent tight ends, nothing too fabulous. But what I did during the season is I ended up trading 2-for-1s, 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 2-for-1s. Whenever I felt the player had reached its high. You know, it's just like one of the things that I do a lot, which helps, is I swing trade stocks. And if you follow trends, you know when it's time to sell and you know when it's time to buy. Long story short, at one point, I ended up having on my squad Aaron Rodgers, Antonio Brown, which I traded Greg Olsen for, Julio Jones, AJ Green.
That's where it's insane.
T.Y.
Yeah. Keep going.
DeMarco Murray.
You still had Murray.
I still had DeMarco Murray. Okay.
He was like an RB or a top 5 running back.
Jordan Reed, Kyle Rudolph. I'm trying to remember. I had Landon Collins, who, by the way, was the #1 defensive player last year for fantasy. And I'm trying to remember who my other 2 running backs were. I had a committee of running backs. I had Forte, Jeremy Hill, who had some very good games. I also had Jaquiz Rogers, who had some very good games with Doug Martin being out. So all in all, my team just looked like it was going to be unstoppable. And there were some weeks where I just completely obliterated teams. But that's the thing. Like, my squad was really high ceiling, really high ceiling, medium floor. So if I ended up getting into a situation where everyone performed medium floor, I'd lose.
Yep.
Whereas Sean, I felt like his team was, above average floor, above average ceiling for every single player. They were just, I tried to get consistency. I didn't get consistency out of it. He got consistency out of it, to the point at which you knew Sean was going to score at least 200 points every game.
Yep.
So strategies differ. Chris, I'd be really interested to see what his strategy is this year. I mean, so far he's 1-2. And I think he by far has the best team. And I mean, by far. I actually think there is separation between him and other teams just based on talent. But it's about who you start. And, injuries play a factor into this too, right?
Definitely. Yeah. How you manage.
Interesting strategy. Cheryl.
Yep.
And I can't ever really seem to pick it up. She's unpredictable. That's what makes her strategy so good. Sometimes you feel like you're trading with her, and like our boy Anthony says all the time, you feel like you fleeced her.
Yeah.
But actually, she's fleeced you.
Yep.
She knows exactly what she's doing.
Yep. And she ain't the 2-time champ for nothing.
She's the 2-time champ for nothing. Last week, she flipped over Tyler Eifert and Jordan Matthews to me for Vernon Davis and Ginn.
Yeah, Vernon Davis is the starter.
Vernon Davis is starter. He had a great week last week, and he's probably going to have good weeks every single time Jordan Reed's out. And Tyler Eifert is probably going to be a non-factor the rest of the season. Luckily, I was able to trade him out.
He could be droppable.
Yeah. He could be droppable.
Yep.
I mean, in my other league, Tyler Eifert was dropped.
Yep. And then this other deal she just made for Thompson and Ingram was similar in that.
Oh, my God.
Yes. I mean, Lorenzo clearly was like dying desperately to flip Chris Thompson, sell high on him. But he overdid it, like Chris Thompson is still going to be, he's not going to be the RB3 for the year, but Chris Thompson, I guarantee you, is probably going to be, I told before he even made the trade, I said, though, Lorenzo, Chris Thompson is probably like Danny Woodhead on steroids this year.
Well, And that's what so you if you recall, I picked up Thompson.
Yeah, you had him. I know.
I had him. I traded. If there's one trade, I felt when we get Lorenzo on here, he probably will disagree with me, but in the last like 4 or 5 trades that I've had with Lorenzo, I feel like I've gotten the better of him in the last 4 or 5 trades, but this time I think he got me. Chris Thompson and DeMarco Murray for Bennett and Chambers.
Yep.
Now, DeMarco Murray had an excellent game last week. Chris Thompson had an excellent game last week. I still think, even though the chances are now lesser than what I thought previously, I still think that DeMarco Murray is on his way out. Just a matter of time. He's got aggravating injuries. He was run to hell while he was playing for Dallas. He was a non-factor while he was with the Eagles. And I still think Derrick Henry over the course of the season will overtake him, or at least be like the Tevin Coleman to at best, like Tevin Coleman to Devontae Freeman, right? Which is not a great thing for Devontae Freeman owners. Sometimes you're like, shit, is Devontae Freeman gonna is he gonna get me the points I need? Well, it all depends on the matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chris Thompson, I think, is still overblown. And here's why. Passing, and you may disagree with me, and I want to hear your feedback on this. Like, receiving running backs, they have a high ceiling, but they also have generally a low floor. And why is that? Well, it's all about matchups.
Game flow. It's all about game flow.
They're not going to be the guys who are going to get 20 touches a game, like on average. They may get 5. They may get 10. They may get 2.
Gruden has come out and said that he doesn't want to give him anything close to that. He wants to keep him in the 10 to 15.
And he wants to keep him at 10 to 15. Yep. And as we know from reports, Rob Kelly will be back, and he's day to day.
Yep.
Perrine, I think, is injured, but I think he'll be back eventually. And also, I know some people may disagree, but I really do think that they're going to start utilizing their receiving weapons. I mean, Crowder has had a terrible year. Terrell Pryor has had a terrible season so far, but they're there, and they're going to get targets in games that require it. So I think in an offense that has that many weapons, this has been a very good 3 weeks for Thompson. But sooner or later, everyone's going to come to terms that Thompson is at best an RB3 play throughout the season. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think he's I mean, given what he's already done, overall, he's going to finish in the RB2 conversation. But as far as what he does from now on, he'll be like a high-end RB3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Switching gears, I did want to we do need to wrap up soon.
Sure.
And so we will definitely do another interview. Maybe we'll get Chris on for the interview next time when we hear about his new job. That's I've been telling Chris for years now that I want him to try stand-up comedy. So this is kind of going to be his debut.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
And maybe we will get into the team name that Chris chose for his team, which It's die Brady die. I'm not going to say anything else. We won't get into it, but it's die Brady die. Yeah, maybe.
Not knowing Tom Brady, he's probably already talked to the commissioner about it.
Yeah. But I think next time around, this is our first time around, so it's a little, we'll just wing it a little bit the first time around. But I think we'll probably get a little bit more into the matchups and talk about what we saw in week 4, which is coming up, or is actually we're in it now. Now that the Thursday night game is concluded, Packers won, by the way, 35-14. Shocking.
What do you think about the injuries in this game? Do you think
the Packers are screwed? I think the Packers are screwed. It's not just because of Montgomery, but the fact that they've lost their best defensive lineman, the fact that they've lost 2 starting tackles, the fact that they've lost now Adams, like it just and it's not like Cobb and Jordy are completely 100% either. They both had minor injuries. Cobb was caused them to miss last week's game. Jordy, seems to be okay, but he's older and he's had an ACL recently late in his career ACL. So I think that these are mounting on them now, and they're lucky that they've got arguably the best player in the game running the most important position on the field, because that's what's keeping them, winning right now. And I think are they 4-0 or are they 3-1? They're 3-1. Atlanta beat them.
3-1. I mean, do you think Aaron Jones is a good pickup option right now, or Jamal Williams?
I mean, clearly, Aaron Jones took over tonight. It's really kind of hard to say because we don't know what the extent of Jamal Williams' injury is. I think they said he went out with a knee. Ty Montgomery's got broken ribs and he's got sickle cell anemia. So that's probably going to be a multi-week, if not like month plus long type of situation for him. If I'm, maybe I'm exaggerating, but I heard the word broken ribs when they described it, meaning more than one broken tonight. So I think Ty Montgomery is going to be done for a while. And that means either Jamal Williams or Ty Montgomery.
You mean Aaron Jones? Yeah.
Aaron Jones, right? Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams. If not both of them, is gonna have some value in that offense moving forward, especially given the not only the lack of depth that they have at running back, but also the fact that they also have a lot of injuries now at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, my concern is this. This is really the only time, I would say in the last 2 years, that I've seen Green Bay really rely on the run as much as they have. Or at least not the run, but their running backs, right? And remember James Starks? Remember back when Ed Lacy got injured, James Starks came in? I mean, James Starks had like a couple of good games, but most of them were under 10 points, not impressive. My concern is the Green Bay Packers tend to only really lean towards their running backs when they can actually really produce. Otherwise, they're just a pass-happy team. I think they'll find, even if Devontae Adams is out, you still have Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Martellus Bennett. You've got you can pull out, what's that guy, Allison, who flashed last week? There's a lot of talent left over in Green Bay. And I think what's going to happen is, let's say Montgomery's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Hypothetically, let's say 4 to 6, 6 to 8, whatever. They're probably going to create some sort of running back committee to see which one emerges for the next couple of weeks. I didn't really see Aaron Jones this week as being someone who was really all too impressive. 4 yards a carry, that's decent, right? That's what you want. 1 touchdown, but when the Packers were leading by like 3 touchdowns, they didn't just grind the run. They chose other options. So that's my sense of it.
Yep.
How about we wrap it up?
Yeah, man. I wanted to just throw one more thing out there that Chris mentioned to me tonight when I spoke to him, and that was just that Tony Romo is a phenomenal broadcaster, analyst.
Yes.
He's pretty he's predicting a lot of the plays that get run before they happen, and he's just breaking down things. We started with some music, so I guess we can go out with some music too. I don't know what that was.
That was just Tony Romo. Rashid's about to drop some knowledge here, so I had to have a soundbite. Tell us what Tony Romo said about.
Well, he literally predicted. I don't know if you saw the Jordy touchdown, but he said, "Okay, Aaron Rodgers. It looks like you know what they like to do here. They like to do like a rollout." And he literally rolled out, and they got the first down on a throw, and then the very next play was like, "Oh yeah, this looks like it's going to be Jordy." On the flat, and Jordy in the flat, touchdown. Packers. I think he also called. I just saw something on Twitter. I think he also called the touchdown to Kendall Wright.
Yeah, I saw that.
The post play. I've heard he's been doing this every game, multiple times each game, not just on touchdowns, but on just general plays. So
he's been crushing.
Yeah. I think my prediction, or what I he was a Cowboy, but now he's not a Cowboy anymore. I don't hate Tony Romo anymore as a Giants fan, but I think he would be a perfect fit to come back next year. Won't give it one more shot to try to win and become a Denver Bronco.
You know what? I think with that kind of knowledge, he's got a coach.
Yeah, no, Chris definitely said that as well, but I think he could just. I mean, come on. Brady's 40. I don't think Romo's even as old as Brady. He could give it one more shot. He could win it with the Broncos. Come on, man.
Yeah, but maybe his thing is. I mean, he's got foresight.
But he can still coach after. He's only got a few. His window is almost closed on just being able to come back. He can pull a Marshawn Lynch at the quarterback position. Come on, man.
He can't even bend over to drop a deuce. His back is injured so much, man. He's got a stand squat.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen,
to drizzle out a deuce.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen.
How can you end it on that note?
I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
Actually, I ended it. I wasn't trying to end it on that note. I was just noting.
Well, they can put it in the books now.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Would you pick up Aaron Jones? You don't have to say what fab money you would pick. Would you pick him up if you had the chance right now?
I will answer that question.
Do you think Tony Romo would say you should pick him up?
I'm just gonna say this right now, Fable. All right, it's coming, baby. You hear that? Got an empty spot on my roster, yo. I'm about to do it. I'm about to drop it, yo. Like a deuce in the toilet. Turn to come it, can't spoil it. Coming out the pan, frying it, yo. It's coming through every single time. We're doing it every single time with the rhyme. This might be we still here, but it also means that we still killing it all up in your ear. Yeah, I'm gonna end it on that note.
So
I am
that
not.
means
I'm not. I can't give
like
I can't
50 fab.
I can't give a number. I can't put a number on it, man. I gotta
And
keep. I gotta keep that close to the chest.
Lorenzo, you know what? Lorenzo's gonna drop all that. He's gonna drop all that cash, baby.
Yeah, Lorenzo's gonna break the bank. No question about it.
Let's take a bet. Who wins? Who wins it?
Lorenzo's gonna get him, and he's gonna spend whatever he's probably gonna have like $5 left tomorrow.
And he's probably gonna pick up like another 5 in a trade just to make it happen.
Yeah, we haven't approved Fab trading yet, but as soon as we do, he'll be trading for it, so he can spend more money.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
And on that note, peace. We still here, baby.
It's the red.
Yeah.